We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Aleph Amar Aleph from Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 91a. On the previous Amar, the Gemara brought a brisa which said, let's say you have an animal that's a muad, and this animal that's a muad, it kills somebody, and then it causes damage. So what you're supposed to do is judge the monetary case first, and that way you'll pay for the damages, and then you judge the animal in terms of killing the person, and you put the animal to death. But let's say you did it out of order. Let's say you judge the Dinei Nefashos case first, and now you said that the animal has to be put to death. So then the brisa said it's too late, you can't judge the monetary case any longer. And the Gemara asked, why is that true? Why is it that you can't judge the monetary case once you've judged the case of Dinei Nefashos? And Rava says that I found the Rabbanan Devei Rav, they were sitting and they were saying as follows, that this brisa must follow Rabbi Shimon HaTimni. We quoted Rabbi Shimon HaTimni on the previous summer. Rabbi Shimon HaTimni says that it's important for the Bezdin to be able to evaluate the actual items that were used in any situation that they're judging. Let's say somebody hits someone with a stone. The Bezdin has to be able to see that stone to evaluate whether it can cause such damage. And therefore we can explain our brisa as follows, if it's following Rabbi Shimon HaTimni, as follows. Alma ba'inan umdana de beidina. You see that according to Rabbi Shimon HaTimni, we need an evaluation by the Bezdin when it comes to damages. V'hakevan de gamar dina liktala. Now over here in this case, if you've already judged the Dinei Nefashos case first, and you've decided that the animal has to be put to death, lo mashinan le umdana de beidina, we're not going to delay in order to have an evaluation by Bezdin to judge the damages. V'lo ma'aninan ledina. We don't want to hold off the judgment. We have to quickly take care of the judgment of putting this animal to death. Any delay is not going to be allowed. That's the explanation of the brisa, that if you did the Dinei Nefashos case first, it's too late, and you're not allowed to do the case. You're not allowed to judge the case of the damages. Rashi explains, Alma ba'inan umdana de Bezdin. You see that you need an evaluation by Bezdin, aflin izakin, even for damages. The ha'hai krab in izakin koi. This pasuk is talking about damages. The chsiv, as it's written, v'hiko ishes reo be'evan o be'egrof v'lo yamus. It says one man strikes his friend with a stone or with his fist. That was the source for Rabbi Shimon HaTimni's idea. So here also, you're going to have to take this shore and evaluate the shore to see if it was fit, if it was able to do such gorings, and you can't do that if we have to quickly put this animal to death. And the Gemara continues, V'yaminu l'hu ano, and I said to them, this is Rava responding to the Rabbanan Devei Rav, I responded, Afilu Temer Rabbi Akiva. You could even say that this brisa is following Rabbi Akiva, that it's not necessary for the shore to be brought in front of Bezdin to be evaluated in terms of the damages. But Hacha b'may askinan, here what are we talking about? Why is it that by the shore muad, if you first did the Dinei Nefashos, why can't you do the Dinei Mamanis? The answer is, Kagon Shabarach, the situation is that the owner already ran away. If the owner ran away, so then you can't have the owner go to court. That defendant needs to be in court. If he ran away, he can't be in court. You can't proceed with the case. As Rashi explains, Kagon Shabarach, but all of the cases, the owner of the animal, of the muad, ran away, Vein Chavin lo adam shalo b'fanav, and you're not able to obligate a person if he's not present, and that can explain why we don't do the Dinei Mamanis. But the Gemara says, what kind of explanation is that? Ibarach, if the owner ran away, ki lo danu Dinei Nefashos, even in a situation where they didn't yet do the capital case, Heichi daininan le Dinei Mamanis below Bailam. How are you doing a monetary case without the owner there? If you ran away, then in all situations you can't do the Dinei Mamanis. Again, the brisa said that you only can't judge the Dinei Mamanis if you did the Dinei Nefashos first. But in a case where he ran away, you can't judge the Dinei Mamanis anyway. And the Gemara now explains, no, the case is the Kabil Sahadi, the witnesses already came in. We already had a court case, Ubarach, and then he ran away. As Rashi explains, the Kabil Sahadi al Negichos, there already were witnesses on the gorings, Ubarach, and then he ran away. Hilkach ein lanu mima l'shalim. The point is, therefore, we don't have anything for him to pay from. We don't have any property from the owner. Uchagon de les le'nichsi. The case is the owner doesn't have any property. There's nothing to collect from. And so that's the idea over here. Again, you had a Dinei Nefashos case first, then you judge the Dinei Mamanis in his case, and then the owner ran away, so there's nothing to collect from the owner, and therefore you can't collect in terms of the Dinei Mamanis. So that's what it means to say over here. The case over here is the Kabil Sahadi Uvarach, but the Gemara asks, sof, but still at the end, Mehecha Mishtalim, so fine, so how are you going to pay? Let's say in a situation where the Dinei Nefashos was not judged first. Let's say the Dinei Mamanis was first, and they brought that to court, and then he ran away. How do you collect? Meiridya. So you collect it from the plowing of the animal. What you'll essentially do is, you're going to rent the animal out to be plowed. That's going to generate some income, and that income will be used to pay the damages. Now that you are able to do in a situation where the Dinei Mamanis is being judged first, rent the animal out to plow a little bit, make some money, use that to pay the damages, and then try the capital case. But if you do the capital case first, it will be a major delay to now rent out the animal for plowing. That's what it means. It's too late. And Rashi says, sof kilo danu dinei nefashos mehecha mishtalim ho lebarach. But even in a case where there was no dinei nefashos, how are you paying if the person ran away and there's nothing to collect from. Umeshani may ridya. And the Gemara says, the answer is you're going to rent the animal out for plowing. Mashanas ashor lecharisha leschiras. You leave the shore around, let it plow, rent it out to plow. Umeshalim lenizik, pay off the nizik what needs to be paid. And then after that, yedinu din in a fashitz, you'll take care of the putting the animal to death. Aval kidmu vidanu lisakal. The point over here is now we understand the distinction. If you already judge the animal to be stoned, lo ma'aninan bedine l'shuya l'ridya. We're not going to delay the judgment that now we're going to go rent out this animal to plow. That is not going to happen. But the Gemara still continues and asks, ihachi, if so, tam, when it comes to the tam as well, the whole Brisa was trying to say a distinction between a tam and muad, and the point was that by a tam, once you've already said you're going to put the animal to death, so there's nothing to collect from because the tam has to pay from the animal itself. But if this is true, by a tam also, nedaine dine mamanis beresha, first let's judge the case of the dine mamanis, v'nishtale meridya, and then what we should do is we should do the same thing. You're able to collect, in this case, let it plow a little bit, generate some income, and then you'll be able to put the animal to death. V'hadru nedaine dine nefashos, and then we'll judge the capital case. Why don't we do exactly that when it comes to the tam? There should be no distinction between tam and muad if you have this concept of renting the animal out to plow. And the Gemara says to that, Amar Rav Mori, Breder Rav Kahana, Rav Mori, the son of Rav Kahana, says very simply, Zos Omeres Ridya Aliyah Demaru. This proves that when it comes to plowing, that's not considered to be paying from the animal itself. That wouldn't be valid by a tam. Again, by a tam, all payment has to be done from the animal. Rather, when you plow with the animal, you generate income through that. That's considered Aliyah Demaru. That's like paying from the best of the owner's property, which does not have to be done by a tam. That's why this is not an option by a tam. It is only an option by a muad to rent the animal out and plow with the animal in order to generate this income. And Rashi says, Aliyah Demaru, it's considered like paying from Minho Aliyah, Ve'ein begufo shel shore. That's not like paying from the shore itself. Ela kashar nechse bailav, that's like taking from the property of the owner. V'tam ein meshalem Minho Aliyah. And again, a tam doesn't pay Minho Aliyah, and that's why that's not an option when it comes to a tam. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. They had the following question: Yesh omid l'nizakin o ein omid l'nizakin. Do we do an evaluation for damages? Meaning, again, as we were discussing above, do we do an evaluation and say, could this item have caused this kind of damage or not? Or do we not do such an evaluation? Mi amrinon l'ktolahu damdin. And do we say that it's only in cases of killing that we do evaluations? B'hachi nafka neshama, b'hachi lo nafka neshama. We say this is able to cause a soul to depart, and this is not able to cause a death. Avol l'nizakin called. But maybe when it comes to damages, we say anything. We don't require an evaluation. Dilmar, maybe lo shna, maybe there's no difference. And when it comes to nizakin as well, we do an evaluation. And Rashi explains, L'ktalahu damdin, and we know we do an evaluation by cases of death, T'chsiv be'even yad asher yomos bo hiko, because it says in the pasuk, Even yad asher yomos bo, talking about something that can cause death, and so therefore we do an evaluation there, certainly. Avol in izaka, but when it comes to damages, ein omdin, maybe over there's no evaluation, da'afilo ein chayfetz zeh roi lehezek zeh. Even if this object wasn't able to inflict this particular damage, chayev, we still say chayev de zimnin de itzak b'chol du, because sometimes damage can happen even with the smallest thing. And so that's the question, whether there's an omid l'nizakin or not. And the Gemara says, Tashma, come in here a proof from the following Mishnah. Ma bor sheyesh bo kadei l'hamis asar tvachim, just like a boar, it's able to kill if it's 10 tvachim deep. Av kol sheyesh bo kadei l'hamis asar tvachim, so too anything, it has to be 10 tvachim. Hayu pechusim me asar tvachim, but if it's less than 10 tvachim, v'nafel l'socho shor o chamor, and into the boar fell an ox or a donkey, v'meis, and it died, so pater, then he's going to be pater, because that's not going to be deep enough to cause a death. But if the animal is damaged, so then already that could cause damage, and we say chayiv. And so the Gemara wants to understand what this Mishnah means. My lav is it not? Mimato lemalaka chashav. We're going from the lower to the higher in the following way. What the Mishnah means is as follows: mitefach v'ad asara, from even one tefach. This is what the Gemara initially is assuming, that the Mishnah is saying even of the smallest boar, if it's one tefach up till 10, misaleka nizakin ika. There certainly it cannot cause death, but it is able to cause damage, meaning we don't need any evaluation. Even the smallest pit, we say it's possible that it can cause nizakin. Almo nizakin kaldahu. You see that for nizakin, even the smallest amount can cause damage. Shmamina ein omdin nizakin. So therefore, we see from the language of this Mishnah that there is no evaluation when it comes to damages. And the Gemara says, Lo no, mimala lamataka chashav. It could be we're going from the upper numbers to the lower numbers. And this is what the Mishnah is saying. Asara, when it comes to one that is 10 tvachim deep, so misa ika, then there is going to be death. Pachas me'asara pursa, if it's a little less than 10 tvachim, nizakin isa misaleka, then there is damages, but there is no death. Uliolam ein malach, and according to that, really I can say to you, yesh omid l'nizakin, we do an evaluation when it comes to damages. V'chol midi v'midi ki hechi demitzaka be'bo'inan, and in every little amount, we have to evaluate, is this the amount, how much damage can this actually cause? And that's why we're saying 9 tvachim can cause this amount, 8 tvachim can cause this amount. Eventually, if it gets so small that it can cause nothing, then we're going to say we're not. We're going to say that that's evaluated, that it does not cause damage. So again, based on this, we cannot bring a proof from this Mishnah one way or the other. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof from the following brisa. This is from the Tosefta. Hiko al eino v'simo, let's say he hits him on his eye and he blinds him. Al ozno v'chersho, he hits him on his ear and he causes him to go deaf. This is talking about an Eved that goes free, an Eved Kanani. So Eved yotze bohen l'chayra. So then we say again, a slave is going to go free in that situation. And the brisa continues, Keneged eino ve'eino ro. Let's say he hits him not on his eye, but he hits him near his eye, and that causes him not to see. Keneged ozno ve'eino shomeya. He hits him near the ear, and that causes him not to hear. Ein Eved yotze b'hen l'chayra. So in that case, the Eved does not go free. And the Gemara says, my time, what's the reason for this? Lav mishum deve'inon umdana. Isn't it because we need an evaluation, and we're saying that it could not have been that that's what caused him to go blind or deaf? Ushmami no yeshom denol l'nizaken. And we see from this that there is evaluations made when it comes to damages. And the Gemara says, lo no mishum da'amrina, and it's really because we say, hu de ivis nafshe, that he actually frightened himself. It could be that the actions that the master took ended up frightening the Eved, and the Eved essentially caused himself to lose his vision or his hearing. That's why he doesn't go free. Kedetanya, as we learned in a brisa, hamavis es chaveru, if one frightens his friend, pater midinei adam v'chayev b'dinei shamayim. He's pater in terms of the courts here on earth, but he's chayev in the heavenly courts. Ketzad how so? Taka biazno v'chersho, pater if he again made a sound into his ear and caused him to go deaf, he's pater. That again is a situation where he just frightened him. But but if he grabbed him, now he did something physical, and then he made a noise into his ear that caused him to go deaf, so then chayiv, he's going to be chayiv. There already he did something physical. It wasn't just through the sound. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here another proof again to this question of whether there's an omid by nizaken or not. Chamisha devarim omden oso v'nosnen lo miyad. There are 5 evaluations that we make, and right away you have to pay a person if you injure the person. And ripoy v'sheves achi yisrapi, when it comes to ripoy for the bills for the healing, and sheves, that's the amount you have to pay for the lost work, you have to evaluate that until the point in time that you estimate that it's going to take him to heal, because that's what you're paying for that time period. Let's say they made an evaluation, they evaluated him how long it's going to take, but then he deteriorated, he actually got worse, it took longer than they thought. They only give him what was the evaluation. The other way around, Amdu v'hivri, let's say they evaluated him, but then he got stronger, he healed faster than they thought. Still, nostan lo kol masha amdu. They give him, everything goes by the evaluation, it goes according to that, even if he got better a little quicker. And the Gemara says, Shema Amina, you see from here, Yesh Omed L'Nizakin. You see that there is an evaluation made for damages. That's exactly what's happening in this case. And the Gemara says, L'meimad gavra kama liktzar mihamaka, kama lo mixer, in order to evaluate a person how much he's going to suffer from this wound, how much he's not going to suffer, lo kami boilan, that was never a question for us. Devadei amdin, and certainly we do that kind of evaluation. That actually was not the question. Ki kami boilan l'meimad cheftza. The question that we had was, if you're evaluating the object that caused the damage, i'aved hainizka olo, we're evaluating, can this cause that kind of damage or not? What's the halacha? That was our question. And the Gemara now says, Tashma, come and bring a proof, and this is the same Shimon HaTimni that we brought before. Shimon HaTimni says, Ma egrof miyuchad, just like a fist is unique, shemasr la'eda ula'edim, that it can be given over to the assembly and to the witnesses, that the Bezdin is to evaluate, or is able to evaluate the fist. Afkol miyuchad, so too, anything has to be in that unique in that way. Shemasr la'eda ula'edim, has to be able to be given over to the assembly and the witnesses. Shmamina, so you see from Shimon HaTimni, yesh omed l'nizaken, that there is an evaluation done for damages. Shema minon, the Gemara says, indeed, we see that is the case. And Rashi explains, Keneged eino, it said that if the master hit him near his eye, but didn't actually hit his eye, so then he doesn't go free. Rashi says the case is, he bekosel Keneged eino shal zeh, he hit by the wall near this person's eye. And so initially the Gemara said that proves diva'inon umdana, that we need to do an evaluation. Uvahachi lo boilis tamuye, and doing that kind of a striking, where you're near the eye, that's not going to be enough to blind him. Elamazlehu de Israel, it was just his mazel that caused this bad thing to happen to him. That's what the Gemara initially said. But then the Gemara said, no, that might not be the explanation. The explanation might be the ivis nafshe, that he frightened himself, so to speak. And achso, if it said that if he grabbed the person already, ma'isa dideu, then it's actually his action, then he is responsible in terms of that situation. Again, it said pater midinei adam v'chayev b'dinei shamayim, if it's taka b'yazno, but if it's achso v'taka b'yazno, then he's chayev. Again, the reason is because that's considered his actions. And then Rashi says, v'ripoy v'sheves ad she'yisrapa, you have to pay the ripoy and sheves until he heals. Kilomar, what that means to say is as follows: Strichen bezin lamod Kamma roy lios nofel lemishka b'chol izeh. The bezin has to do an evaluation. How long will this person be bedridden with this illness because of what happened? And the person has to pay immediately kol ripoy v'shivto, all of those bills for the healing and for the lost work. All the mizonos that he needs until he gets better. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Mar, the master said, Amdu v'hivri, if they evaluated him and then he heals faster than the evaluation, still nos and lo kol mashamdu, still he's given all that they evaluated, they go by the evaluation. And the Gemara says, Messiah le Rava, this is a support for what Rava said. The Amar Rava, because Rava said, Haiman damdu lekula yoma, let's say a person was evaluated for the entire day, meaning he's not going to be able to work the whole day. Ve'itbach lepalga diyum, and then he healed halfway through the day. Ve'ka'avid evidita, and then he was able to work. Yavinan le the kula yoma, we give him for the entire day, we still go by the evaluation. Min shemayahu derachmiela, we assume that it was from the heavens that they had mercy on him, and therefore he himself was fortunate to heal faster, but still we go by the evaluation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rakak v'higia bo harok, if he spits at him and the spit reaches him, v'haver v'chulo, so then it said there's a payment of 400 dinar for the humiliation. And the Gemara says, Amar Rapapa says, Lo shanu elabo, this is only true if the spit actually reaches him, it goes on his skin. Avol bebigdo lo, but if it goes on his garment, so then there is no such payment. But the Gemara says, V'nahaviki ba'ish b'devarim, but let it be no different than embarrassing someone with words. There nothing physically touched him, but you still have to pay for that kind of humiliation. And the Gemara says, Amri v'ma'arav mishmeid Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, they say in the West, in the name of Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, Zos omers, this proves on the contrary. Ba'isho b'devarim, if he humiliates him with words, pater miklum, he is pater, he doesn't have to pay, there is no payment for that kind of humiliation. And the Gemara continues, Hakol lefi chavodo v'chulu. The first Tana, the Mishnah said, the first Tana ended off after saying all these various amounts that you pay for boshes. It said it all goes by the level of respect, level of honor that is this person who was humiliated. And so the Gemara now asks Iboilu, they have the following question: Tanakama lekula ka'amar or lechumra ka'amar? Is the Tanakama here being lenient on the perpetrator, or is he being strict on the perpetrator? Meaning to say, are we saying that this amount of money, the amounts of money that we listed in the Mishnah, are minimums and maybe he has to pay even more? Or maybe these are maximums and it's possible to pay less. And the Gemara explains the question. Lekula kamar, we could say it's a leniency. Di'ika ani deloboy lemishkal kulihai. Maybe there's a very poor person, you don't have to pay that much money. Odilmor, maybe lechumar kamar, maybe this is a stringency. Di'ika asher, the Mishnah is saying you could have someone very wealthy, deboy lemesav leitfei, where more money needs to be given. And the Gemara says, Tashma, come in here a proof, midakam Rabbi Akiva, from the fact that in the Mishnah goes on, and Rabbi Akiva says, Afilu aniyim shabi Yisrael roan osan ki Elohein b'nei chorin, sheyardu min nechseim shem b'nei Avram, Yitzchak v'Yakov. Rabbi Akiva says that even the poor of Israel, we view them as though they were free men, that they had money, and then they lost their property, for they are the children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Rabbi Akiva clearly is being strict on the perpetrator. He's saying, even though this is a poor person, but we evaluate the poor person as if this was a person that did have a certain amount of stature. And therefore, if Rabbi Akiva is being strict, Shmamina Tanakama, Lekula Ka'amar Shmamina, you see from this that the Tanakama is the one being lenient, and the Gemara says, indeed, we see that that is the case. And Rashi explains, Midukama Rabbi Akiva afilu la'aniyim, from the fact that Rabbi Akiva is strict, and he says that when it comes to poor people, we treat them as though they had wealth, and then they lost that wealth. And Rashi explains a little more clarity in why we see that from Rabbi Akiva. V'chazina de lo chayiv lases leporea rosh isha ala arba me'ozuz. There's a story that goes on in the Mishnah where we see Rabbi Akiva says that somebody uncovers the head of a woman, he had to pay only 400 zuz ketanakama, just like the Tanakama. So shma mina Tanakama lekula kama. You see from that the Tanakama was saying a leniency, that 400 zuz was a maximum and it could even be less. And therefore, de la'ani lo yahavina kulihai, the Tanakama would say to a poor person, you don't have to pay that much. The Kamar le Rabbi Akiva, and then Rabbi Akiva is is responding, La'ani nami yahiv nahachi. To an ani also, I would say give that much, because again, Rabbi Akiva says you treat the ani as if he was somebody who had wealth. And that was even an incident, again, and Rabbi Akiva said the payment was 400 zuz. Now, if you think the other way, that the amount the Tana Kamma said of 400 zuz is actually the minimum amount that you give to the poor person, and akol lefi chavoda was a stringency that you'd have to give more to a wealthy person. And then Rabbi Akiva is coming and saying that even in ani, it's going to be more than 400 zuz. Then he should have said that by the case of uncovering the head of the woman, it should have been more money, but he didn't say that, and therefore again you see it's Rabbi Akiva is strict, and you see according to the Tana Kamma, these were maximum amount of payments. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, again, there was an incident where a person uncovered the head of a woman, and Rabbi Akiva said, you have to pay the 400 zuz, and then the person said, can you give me some time? And so the Gemara says, do we really give the person time? Didn't Rabbi Chanina say, that you don't give time when it comes to paying for injuries? And the Gemara says, when do we not give time? That's talking about injuries where there's a loss of money. But by humiliation, like in this case, the where there's no loss of money, so for there already, and there already we will give time. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Shamro medes al pesach chatzer v'chulu. Then it says the person who uncovered the head of this woman, he waited for her by the chatzer. And then it says, Rabbi Akiva says, what you did was for nothing. Because even though you've shown that she's willing to humiliate herself, but a person is allowed to injure themselves, but they still don't have to pay. But nevertheless, if someone else causes the injury, they have to pay. So therefore, you still have to pay. And the Gemara says, V'atanya, but didn't we learn in a brayso? Amar lo Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva said to him, Salaltu b'mayim adirim, you plunged into the mighty waters, Velisa cheres biyadcha, and all you came up with was earthenware shards in your hand. Adam rashoy lechavel bi'atzmo, a person actually is permitted to injure himself. The contradiction here is Rabbi Akiva said something very similar in the brayso to the Mishnah, but here in the brayso, Rabbi Akiva is saying it's permitted for a person to injure himself. In the Mishnah, he said that it's not permitted for a person to injure themselves. Amar Rava says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan b'chavola, kan b'boshas. In one case, we're talking about injury, that's not permitted, but to humiliate oneself, that actually is permitted. But the Gemara asks, V'mas nisun b'boshas, but our Mishnah is talking about humiliation, and again, the Mishnah said it's not permitted, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf 91a Daf Amud Beis.